Tess Healy Maguire is a lady of many talents. In the theatrical world, she is an actor, director, voiceover artist and singer. She can also make props and costumes. Some of Tess's favourite roles were in Shawleys, Man of La Mancha, The Sunbeam Girls and Under Milkwood. Tess is also a great cook. She loves to barbecue, has a fabulous garden, but she detests housework. She was also accepted onto the astronaut programme. So strap yourselves in and enjoy Tess's memories of Cork Arts Theatre.
There's no sense me not having the mug of tea with me because most people wouldn't know me without it, and I'm not sure my students have ever seen me without it unless I was on the stage. So, it was only when I was asked that I realized how many memories of good times in the Cork Arts Theatre I had. So rather than spill all the happenings, I thought I'd just share a few personal highlights. So, I was working with the wonderful Declan Wolfe, and he had created a lovely show with an Irish theme of songs and stories for the younger students. And we were performing it in the Cork Arts Theatre. Now, it was fairly chilly, and I always feel the cold, so I was bundled up to the max, just in case. And Declan was backstage. I was up in the booth with Jamie Feely, and he was going to be doing the lights, and I was going to be doing the sound. So I was all set to do my musical cues. And with both of us in the booth, for those of you that are familiar with the inside of the booth there, it's snug. And since we were both bundled up for the cold, it was very overstuffed. I mean, I was a bit more of a robust figure in those days. Very robust. So it wasn't a problem. I mean, I've worked in smaller booths, but my blood sugar decided to drop like a rock in the middle of one of the lively songs. And I had thought enough to leave out a roll of these special sweets that I have for that kind of occasion. But what I hadn't realized is that from living in my handbag, they'd sort of welded themselves together. So I didn't know what to do. I mean, here's poor Jamie. He has one eye on me, one eye on the board, both hands working the lights cues, and I'm getting dizzy, and I'm starting to think I'm going to fall off the blasted stool. And I knew if I did, they would have had to break down a wall to get to me. So, lucky enough, right about then, a chorus came up, and it was really one of the loud, lively ones. I don't even remember which one. I was, wavering. And I just had the bright idea of taking that roll of sweets and going whap, whap, whap in that kind of time to loosen them up. And the parents that were sitting in the row in front of the booth must have thought that I was clapping along with the song, so they started clapping along in rhythm. I mean, talk about the relief, because I just took those sweets, shoved as many as I could in my mouth, paper and all on some of them, and was able to come back enough not to miss the next music cue. Poor Jamie, he must have aged a decade in that night. But, things don't always go wrong. I've tried to work sound for various different shows and all that over the years and done all sorts of different show-related things. But I swear, it's almost like there's little gremlins that follow me around. And when I'm trying to do something other than performing, though they've had their moments in my performances as well, that they really just wreak havoc. And I should just stick to safer jobs like the performing. Of course, I very rarely take that advice when I can. working with more of the senior students, and actually all of them have been very rewarding. And I was really lucky at one point. I was working with what was then called the Wolf Pack at Declan's, and I brought a small production of A Midsummer Night's Dream to the Cat stage. And I'm telling you, it is amazing what he can do to create a set out of a couple of camouflage nets and some fake flowers. Then again, I made Titania's overskirt from a length of netting and some strands of faux floral ivy. But the kids were memorable. They did such a beautiful job. And someday, some of them will forgive me for having them do a kind of maquilla Morris dance on the stage, sticks and bells on sticks and everything. They weren't amused, but the audience seemed to enjoy it. But the energy and talent the students brought to each production was unbelievable. I mean, we also had there, I directed a production of The Crucible, and there were moments, especially from the chorus of young girls that were the accusers, that just gave us chills. And there were moments of real anguish and, I think Arthur Miller would have been proud, and I think the audience really picked up on all those dark messages. It was just such a great experience. And I mean, some of them, and I have said this to them, they will never step foot on a stage again, and that's fine. But in doing all these productions, whether it was with me, with Declan, anywhere and everywhere, I think they were able to get a bit of self-confidence. And at the end of the day, that's the important thing, really. I mean, there are some that were on the stage and they just knew this was where they were going to be, what they were going to do, whether it was on stage or elsewise. But they brought their all. Another group of students spent a good portion of their summer getting ready a production of a young adult play called Wake Up Sleeping Beauties for the lunchtime program. And it was 6 teenagers reimagining an ancient Irish queen, Queen Maeve, and Disney fairy princesses all stuck in a tower together, and a prince who was facing that conundrum for these old-fashioned princes of equality for women. And it was supported by an equally young crew. Well, they went through the wars in getting it ready and just dealing with, all the bumps in the road that came along. I mean, poor Rapunzel. She suffered through wearing a cobbled-together wig with nearly 5 feet of hair, and I tried to keep it as tidy as possible, but it was so heavy, it weighed a ton, and we nearly had to nail it to her head with the hair clips to keep it on. Oh, she was so relieved every time she could just take it off and have her neck and her head back in the right position. But they did such a fantastic job, and like I said, whatever happened, whatever bumps in the road, they went with it. Not a bother out of them. I sometimes wish I had, at least half their energy, even a quarter at this point. But one student I drafted for a role in an outside production that I did. It was actually an offbeat, and that's putting it mildly, holiday production of Christopher Durang's Mrs. Bob Cratchit's Wild Christmas Binge. Now, we ended up doing this at 2 Christmases in the Cork Arts Theatre, and I'm telling you, it is a very different retelling of an old classic. Now, Antoinette Hilliard played Mrs. Bob, and she really went for it. I mean, it was it was just, she can be a force of nature. And Judy Donovan had all these multiple roles in it. I mean, it would make anybody else's head spin. And at some points, she was playing this role that was such the treacly accepted idea of what Mrs. Cratchit should be like, as opposed to the one that we had in the show. So they played off each other so well. And me, among other crazy things, I was Little Nell, and I'll tell you some of the costumes that I had to wear, and that some of the others had to wear, really. But as my mother would have said, I looked like the wreck of the Hesperus, and that would have been kind, even the wigs alone. But our feeble Tiny Tim was played by the exceptionally healthy and talented young Alex Murphy. So you can imagine how, things weren't quite the way you think they should be. I mean, my poor husband was even drafted in to paint the set, which meant that, like, he had all these bricks all on the back wall and had to paint these little boxes that we were using as seats and tables and God knows what else. But he was a great sport about it. But everybody brought their A game, even the bunch of, we had orphans. And there was not a maudlin hallmark moment in the entire production at either run. We had a blast. Now, I wasn't always working with children, though. I wrote, among other things, a small collection of very short plays that I premiered at the Cork Arts Theatre in another of their lunchtime runs. And it was called She Said What? And it was about, I think, in the end, there were 6 of us that put it together, all women. And it was written for women, an all-female cast. And I'm telling you, presenting your own work is nerve-wracking at the best of times. But strangely enough, I don't remember any real problems with it. I mean, there's always going to be some silly thing happening. But the support I received was wonderful. And the feedback was, I'm still writing, so if that gives you a clue. It didn't put me off. But it was a great place to launch a new venture. Now, I know I said just a few bits and pieces, and yes, I could probably talk the whole day, but I can't think of things that I did or worked on or people I worked with at the Cat without talking about another lunchtime play. And this, again, was one that I was lucky enough to bring there, and I had called it Ladies of an Uncertain Age. I swear it was like I hit the trifecta. I had Maureen Prendergast, Kay Ray Malone, and Mon Murphy. I mean, we sold out before the doors even opened. I knew they were, beloved, but I never realized just how much. And the whole thing from beginning to end was, it'll never leave my heart or my mind. I mean, with these 3 unbelievable, unbeatable talents, it was like I'd won the lottery. Maureen played the title role in a short Christopher Durang bit called Mrs. Sorkin. And she plays an older visiting speaker who, when she actually got up to go on stage and give her speech, had a really big senior moment and just couldn't remember. Now, this was not Maureen, because she is brilliant and completely professional, but it was written as the character completely forgot what she was doing there and what she was supposed to speak about. So she wings it and just goes off on these wild flights of fantasy and makes connections, and you're just kind of sitting there going, what in the world is this crazy lady on about? But it was fantastical, warm, and so deeply engaging. Now, Kay and Mon worked on this little play called Lost, and with anyone else, it probably would have been stale stereotypes of two little old ladies and their carries-on. But they took those ladies to new heights. I swear the audience was enthralled. And really, in working with them, neither of them, they kept telling me, oh no, I'll never get the lines right. I'm never going to remember everything. It'll be so this, that, and the other. And yet, when they were up there and I was backstage to hand off anything or, just kind of go team type of thing, and I was so caught up in what they were doing that, of course, I tripped and broke a glass vase, which was very noisy and, of course, dangerous. Don't know what I was thinking. They didn't miss a step. Now, Kay did give me a raised eyebrow, but of course it was the upstage eyebrow so that the audience didn't see. But they were in a league of their own, all three of them. And rehearsals were so much fun, but particularly when you got Kay and Mon together and we had a rehearsal scheduled, I had to block out at least twice as long because we'd be having so much fun that I had to, keep bringing us back to whatever to make sure that we got everything done. And we rehearsed a lot in the Wolf studio, so any production shots I got were either, on the stage that Declan had built for the drama students there, or because Kay and Mon were supposed to be going and taking a car trip together. I had an old Mercedes at the time, and so I took a couple of pictures of them as if they were going to drive off and go on their adventures. Now, I did not give them the keys to my Mercedes. It was an old one, but I had waited a lifetime to get one, so not a chance. Loved them dearly, wasn't giving them the keys. Especially as, the play involved, shall we say, less than stellar driving. But, and I had typed up the font, the script for them, and I kept having to make the font larger and larger so they could read it more easily. And I swear by the time I was done, you could have read that font from the back of the bar at the Cat from on the stage. It just was ridiculous, but memorable. We lost Kay last year, and I miss her terribly. And I can only hope that someday I am even remotely half as good as she was when I reached that uncertain age. So last tiny thing, I swear. You may or may not recognize his real name, but the brilliant Tiny Tim has graduated to be one half of the Young Offenders. Yes, that Alex Murphy. So I'm looking forward to seeing what else he does. I know it will be amazing. And to set the record straight, when I was on the show, it was a gold bikini that they had me knit, nothing else. And it wasn't even the right size. And it chafed. And you don't need to know how I know that. But this was a lot more fun than I thought it would be, going back and thinking about all these things. And thank you for letting me share it with you. Sometimes I think memories are the best gifts you can give yourself. So go make some.